What is up, my tricksters? It's your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh! Superhero back again with another IRL deck December. So, today's one, obviously, is going to be Gouki's. Very budget, has some really cool effects involved in it, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But before we get into that, guys, I want to remind you, if you guys want to support the channel, make sure you check the links in the description. You can get your playmat discount, where you can get custom sleeves like the ones that are for my dinosaur deck. I always forget that I'm supposed to show you these things. I don't know why it escapes me. Make sure you can get yourself some custom sleeves. They'll literally put pretty much any artwork you want on there. And they also do game mats too, so just saying. And of course, make sure you get some holiday merch. We got Frank merch with a Santa Claus hat, you know, with a happy frickin' holidays, because, you know, he loves the holidays. That's the right thing to say, right, Frank? Don't you laser blast me again. I'm not kidding. Anyway. Alright, I've got enough singeing scars from you. That's not funny. Anyway, let's get into that deck profile, shall we? Alright, guys, let's get into this Gouki deck profile. Now, what's going to be a little bit different about this deck profile is we are going to have the sideboard featured towards the tail end of this. The reason why is because I think that this particular deck, there are some cards that are kind of non-negotiable. Because, believe it or not, this deck doesn't really have a whole lot of holes in its armor, except for a handful. And so, the sideboard kind of instead of the sideboard being built to fight the decks that are popular, because this deck's boss monsters really already have a inherent advantage against other opponents' boss monsters and boss cards. The sideboard is more built to kind of cover this deck's weaknesses. So let's kind of go over the main deck. So first of all, you need your Suprex. This is kind of your bread and butter. This guy's the centerpiece of the entire Gouki deck, because this guy just summons another Gouki and thus allows all of your plays to really go off. He's pretty much the bread and butter. The next bigger, really important Gouki monster, in my opinion, is Gouki Headbat. The reason why is because the rest of the Gouki monsters really don't do a whole lot for you for your end goal plays, but these two guys do, because they put Goukis on the field, and that is the big important thing. These cards, also the Goukis you want are the Goukis that search for other stuff. That's a big key thing there. Remember that. And the next one we have is Bear Hug. It's a name that searches. That's all there is. Scorpio, it's a name that searches. And this card actually has also the bonus effect that if you don't have any monsters, or the only monsters you control are Gouki monsters, you can normal summon it without sacrificing. So that's very important. Then you have your Twist Cobra, which for certain Goukis, its ability to increase attack can come up here and there. Not really all often, but the big important thing of this card is it's just another card that's going to thin the deck out. Then we have, actually, before I'll go over this one first. Then we have Gouki Guts. Basically, this guy can increase the attack of Goukis during the main phase, and it's a permanent gain by 200. If it goes to the graveyard, searches something, and if it happens to be on the field in defense mode, it can't be destroyed in battle. That effect rarely comes up, but sometimes it does. I remember I had one opponent, I can't remember the duel entirely, but basically this guy was in defense mode, and he just, for some reason, he just couldn't get over it, over the non-destroying in battle thing. So it was kind of a funny moment there. Anyway, now we're kind of going into the Goukis that are kind of hand traps, which is kind of why that's why they're separated out a little bit weird. First one, we have Gouki Iron Claw. So basically what this one does is during the battle phase, when a Gouki is battling, you can dish this card, it'll give that Gouki 500 points, and then for the rest of the turn, that Gouki is unaffected by card effects. I wish that second half of that effect was a little more important than it really is. But basically, Gouki Iron Claw is just, like I said, for most of the Goukis, he's just a name that searches another Gouki card. And that's kind of the bread and butter of Goukis, is that each one of these guys searches off another card, as long as it's not the same copy. So, and that by 500 boost does come up, and more often than the not protecting, making it unaffected. Unfortunately, the cards that you would want to be unaffected by, Konami made rulings for that are really dumb in my opinion, but we'll get to that later. Alright, and then we got Octo Stretch. Now this card is also a hand trap as well as a Gouki you might want to keep in your hand if you can spare it. And the reason why is because it halves damage, which, believe it or not, that effect has actually saved me a number of times, so I get to play into the next turn and come back. So minimizing damage kind of comes up a little bit. So there you go. It's also level 1, so you know, for cards that are later on that you're going to see for combo pieces, that's going to let you keep playing, and the fact that it's a low level. Then we have the one that a lot of Gouki decks don't bother with, and this is Gouki Ring Trainer. I like this card specifically for one Gouki in the extra deck, and I like to have him for that. I know that he's really not all that useful, but mostly this is the guy I'm searching if I need a card that I'm not going to be using that turn. This is the guy I search off of that. Then we have some of our non-Gouki monsters. These guys are very important though. So the first thing is we have Warrock Gactos. Basically what's going to happen is you really want cards like these because sometimes your Goukis, your main deck, your Gouki monsters that are going to let you facilitate your plays, sometimes your opponents get really wise and they Valor these things, like your Suprex, and this is going to let you continue to play, basically. So you kind of need random extenders, like so. Then we have Codebreaker 0 Day. This is going to let you go into help you get into your inboard. We do have it as part of the Codebreaker engine. And then we have the last one we have is Junk Forward. This is just a free. Oh, there's a warrior. We need that. And the reason why we pick these guys mostly is because they are Earth attribute. This does come up. That's why we're not playing like Red Layer. I know Red Layer is a popular one to play, but I like Junk Forward because it's an Earth Warrior. Then we got the one Rhoda, because now we're into the spells. This is just monsters and spells. There's no trap cards in the main deck. Then we got our and we are going first deck. I want to let everyone know that, just in case you're new to Goukis. Reinforcement, it searches everything in the deck. I wish Gouki had their own version of this card like Heroes do, but maybe Konami thought that'd be a little too powerful, I guess. And then we got Instant Fusion. This is another way for us to throw a warrior on the field. And there's a handful of options for that you can pick for this, but just pretty much what you want is just a warrior fusion. It can be anything. There's a handful of options. We'll go over that when we get to the extra deck. I'll mention a few other than the one I picked. Upstart Goblin, it's a deck thin. Alright, we put a lot of monsters in the graveyard really easily in this deck, so one of the cards that we're definitely piloting with is Pot of Avarice. Basically, for this deck, it's recycling those resources is so important. I wish this deck would just pick 5 cards, but it has to be monsters, but for the most part, it helps. Monster Reborn, Pseudo Extender, our Soul Charge, and yes, I played 3. I know that the popular opinion is not to play 3, but also the popular opinion is to use the Goukis to do other things than what I'm using them for. So, you know, some Gouki players are probably going to hate my guts. Some of them are going to love me. It's just going to be, it is what it is. So this is basically the Soul Charge of the deck. Then we got another Monster Reborn, World Legacy Secession. This is just another card we use to put Goukis from the graveyard on the field so we can continue to make plays. Gouki Face Turn, another same purpose as Monster Reborn, rematch and Secession. Basically, what you do is you target a Gouki and you control and a Gouki monster in the graveyard, destroy the one on the field, and special summon the one from the graveyard. Basically, it's just letting you trade a Gouki. And believe it or not, this actually saved my butt against an Eldritch player recently who almost had me. He almost got me, but that saved my butt. Then we got our equip spells. We got I'm not exactly, this is the only one I am sold on is the Phoenix Blade. You'll see why. But these two I'm kind of iffy about. This one is because it combos with this one. And this one just because, you know, the attack bonus kind of can come up, but honestly, you could really just cut this down to these two because you're not really wanting higher level. You usually won't need a higher level than one. Then we got our quick play spells, Call by the Grave, because Droll is a pain in the ass. And you need that, and Ash Blossom can hurt a little bit too, but there's kind of ways to work around and circumvent Ash Blossom with this deck. But Call by the Grave is really mostly just for things like Droll and Lockbird, because if you get Drolled, your turn's pretty much done. And then we got our Twin Twisters. Basically, we use them with all the spare stuff we're getting off of the Goukis, as well as the Phoenix Blade. Here, it's basically banishing the warriors that we don't need anymore, and then we got our fodder for this. This also helps when we're stuck going second against a back row based deck. Anyway, so now we're going to go over the extra deck, which I know some of you are going to think it looks a little weird because you already know one. Alright, so we got the Giant Ogre. I'm going to move the one non-link monster to the back. We got the Giant Ogre. This guy's actually my favorite one out of all these, but this isn't the optimal combo. This is he's more of the backup plan. And he is actually more beneficial in more like front row heavy based formats. Like if you're up against a deck that's very monster heavy, like say something like Grand Maju, this card can actually be very handy. Like the Dark World or Danger Dark World or Danger Grand Maju decks, you know, those kind of things. This actually does come. This guy can come up because he's big. He's unaffected by a lot of things. He can't be destroyed by battle. And then if something targets him, he can lower his attack. And then of course, if his attack is different from his original attack, he can just give himself 1,000 points, which just being unaffected by other monster effects is really good. And also being able to negate targeting does come up. I mean, I frustrated a number of Sky Striker players with this card. I won't be able to do that forever, but for now, I can do that. Alright, so this is the bread and butter, basically, of these guys, is these two guys. Basically, everything leads up to getting these two guys in the field at the same time. Because while they're on the field together, they're both like 3,600. And then if you throw other Goukis or other Link monsters in the field, they just get bigger, and they are unaffected by everything. The unfortunate thing is, though, is evenly matched is still a pain in the butt, and of course Kaijus are still a big pain in the butt for you if you should be up against anything that's going to do that. Then it's going to break your combo, which is why we have so many like Monster Reborn S targets, things like that, so we can bring these guys back. Then we kind of got your pseudo of this card. This card is kind of like this guy, but not exactly, and that is your Gouki Solid Ogre. Gouki Solid Ogre basically is he can't be destroyed by battle, he can't be destroyed by card effects while he points to a Gouki. So the optimal thing is to put him there or like so, and yeah. Yeah, so that's basically he's just another dude who can't be destroyed, which there was one. I ended up against a Eldritch player who was playing the Dragoon package, and I went first, so I set this up, and then in going into main phase 2 after he exhausted his negates, I made this and just sat on it, and that player just the Eldritch Dragoon player just couldn't get around this. It was really funny watching him keep trying to blow stuff up, and yeah, he couldn't destroy anything. I've had to mute Edo Pro a lot lately. I get insulted a lot. Then we got your Gouki Thunder Ogre. This is kind of like your pseudo of that Gem Knight fusion dude, but he gives you an extra summon, but it's only for Gouki monsters, and it has to point to a zone that he has. But you know, it can come up, and like I said, everything's leading to this guy, so he's another route to this card. Then you got your let me put them together. Makes sense, so I can make a little bit of sense for you guys. Then you got your climb up with Goukis, as I call them, your Heal Ogre and your Jet Ogre. Basically, these three monsters all serve the same purpose. Now, Jet Ogre has a attack increase effect in the graveyard, and Heal Ogre has a negate effect. It doesn't come up because oftentimes they're not going to put a monster in front of him, and you're not going to go second often enough to go and put him in front of a monster. But, I mean, you could do that if that situation arises. It's just most players don't put a monster in front of that zone for a reason. Now, they're not just they're dodging other things, not this, but it does. But yeah, he does have a negation effect. But for the most part, you're only using these guys so you can climb into your bigger Goukis. Basically, they're just the climb up Goukis. And then we're gonna go into our non-Gouki monsters. Or Gouki Link monsters. The first ones that are important is that you want to have is where our playing is old. You kind of need this card, really. Goukis really do need this card. This card really facilitates everything leading up to the Power Load Ogre, and if you didn't have that, you'd be in deep doo-doo. And then we got the other half of that is the Virus Swordsman. You need these cards. They're usually what happens is you're using this to get to the first power load, and you use these two guys to get to the second. Yeah. And then oftentimes that board ends with, like, when it's all said and done, you basically are ending on a board that looks like this, basically. Is what that board typically ends up looking like. But the idea there is, like, if it's okay if they kill this. I mean, you know, it's fine. It's not the end of the world if this guy dies. And then, of course, you still... And then you have your indestructible dudes. And, yeah. And then you got just some nonchalant ones, like just some stuff for themes. Like, I like this one. You don't have to play this guy at all. I just like him because, you know, Joey Wheeler is cool. And then Nightmare Phoenix because, you know, back row hate. And then we got our non-Link monsters. So, I got Gouki Cowboy in here as an option for, like, I guess for time. I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but, like, at tournaments you are on a time limit, so I figured Cowboy could, like, you know, potentially do some damage. Maybe I could take a game in that aspect. And then, of course, you have your instant fusion target, which I went with Guilty of the Night. I think he's cool. Some other ones that you could try are Invoked Ragin or Carbonala Warrior might be a better option for this deck, honestly. So you could, you know, use this. But I just went with this one just because he looks cool. And I figured, you know, since I'm just doing... I haven't played these decks at a tournament or anything in a while. So I figured, you know, it's okay if I don't go as optimal as I could. As long as I mention the more optimal cards that you could play if you have them. I suggest Invoked Ragin because... right now for Flunderies, if you have it available, like you saw in my last video, I have an Invoked Ragin in my Blue Eyes Invoke deck. Actually, just in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about, because my Blue Eyes Invoke deck is at my desk, this is the card I'm talking about. This one is the one I have set in here, but this one probably would be the optimal card to put in. Because Flunderies are kind of roaming around these statues, so you can instant fusion play this, potentially put the statue face down, and then you can continue to make your plays. Carbonala Warrior would also probably be a good choice because it's Earth, and that is more important for the sideboard. So, which we're gonna go over actually. Normally I don't show my sideboards because everybody's locals is a little different. So. But because this deck really doesn't play around the meta decks, because like I said at the beginning, like a lot of the meta cards, if you get these two guys out at the same time, a lot of them just can't do anything about it. The best ways to get rid of these guys, which I know that some of the Gouki players are going to be like, shut up, don't tell them. But I'm going to have to, just for transparency's sake. I'm sorry, Gouki players. You're going to have to... You're going to hate my guts. But basically, how people get around with this is things like Evenly Match and Kaijus. They're the primary ways to get around this. Because Evenly Match forces the player, which I think is incredibly stupid. It's the same with Mystic Mine. But those cards need to be errated to affect the monsters instead, if you want my honest opinion. I think that you should have to beat over this card to get rid of him. I said what I said, but I know I'm probably alone in that camp, or the only people who agree with me are Gouki players. But basically, the end all be all is just getting these guys out there, and then your opponent really can't do too much to get rid of them. So basically, what their answers are going to be Kaijus and things like Evenly Matched, things that affect the player more so than the cards themselves, and that way they'll make him weak enough to beat over. So that being said, we have to play our sideboard in the idea of thinking about the cards that counter our deck as opposed to being different or to being more mainstream in Yu-Gi-Oh! And counteracting the opponent's deck. So basically what I have for my sideboard is first of all, we have our the first thing that you're going to want to think about is this is a very going first deck because you have to set this card up. So for the first 5 cards I'm going to show you are if you're forced to go second, and you can play the better versions of these cards if you have them. I suggest that you do. But because this is a budget deck, and most of my decks are very budget, we're going with that. So first of all, I have Dino Wrestler Pankratops. Now this card you can use as a force out and negate, which is mostly what the reason why we would even side him in, is to do that. You're using him as a way to force the opponent to respond, so you don't have to use your Gouki monsters. So that's what he serves. And in that same vein, you play these cards like these. These are just examples, by the way. You could also play things like Forbidden Chalice. If you have droplets, I suggest you play Forbidden Droplets. If you have Lightning Storms, play those. Dark Ruler No Morris, if you have them, play them. I'm just like, you know what I mean? If you have those cards available for your sideboard, take these out and play those. These are just examples, but basically these are the budget options I have, and the idea is to force the opponent to respond. Also, these cards, well, minus this one, but these four get rid of the Barrier Statue of the Wind, which does come up from time to time. So you're going to need something to kind of out that. I mean, and you don't have a whole lot of main deck options. Like, one of your main deck options, as you guys saw, would be like Moon Mirror Shield on one of my Gouki monsters, and just hope I'm big enough to beat over whatever there's a problem of. And that's just if I get a chance to use it. So the next cards, the rest of these cards are a little more accurate to what you'll actually be using to defend yourself against the popular cards that are going to out your deck. Like I said, Kaiju's and Evenly. Those are going to be the popular cards. So first of all, for Evenly Matched, if you think your opponent might be using it after you've royally stomped them in the ground with this, Lancia. This is going to be a great card to help you. Also, it's going to help you from if your opponent tries to use things like Dimension Shifter, which I know is very popular right now, especially in Flunderies. You drop this card, you don't have to worry about your Kaijus going away, or excuse me, not your Kaijus. You don't have to worry about your Goukis going anywhere else. So you just no. Then we got your now we're gonna have trap cards because we are going first deck, and the first one I have is Mask of Restrict. You could play this against Flunderies. It might slow them down a little bit. I do know that they have a main deckable out for this card, so you might want to think about that. But you could do this. This is mostly just in here for those Kaiju-esque type cards. Basically, you'll play this to protect your power load from things like Kaijus. And then the last 5 cards are actually kind of serving the same purpose, but you know, you can just kind of mix and match as needed. And I have Rivalry of Warlords and Gozen Match. You don't have to play these ratios. That's the thing, for the record. If you're a Gouki player, you do not have to play the ratios I'm playing. These are just what I had available for this deck. But basically the idea here is, depending on what you're up against, you basically are kind of covering, like some decks are like monotype and or like not monotype and not mono attribute. You could just side in the whole 5. Other decks are one or the other. So basically what you're doing here with this is you're basically making it to where you're the only one, and that's why I mentioned earlier that you want to make sure that everything in your deck is a Earth Warrior, because basically that is going to let you dodge no matter what these are. And like I said, you are main decking Twin Twisters, but like you're going to want cards like, you know, extra back row hate. Maybe you might play something like Pankratops, just as an example. And also like a lot of back row based decks, like if you get to go first, power load won't hurt them. The biggest thing you'll have to worry about will be things like Mystic Mine. But the good news with that one is your monsters are unaffected by everything else. So even though Mystic Mine's on the field, these guys aren't going anywhere. So you could just wait until you actually draw those Twin Twisters and solve that problem. For the most part, I mean, there might be situations where you might get BSOL. I know that Prohibition's a popular one, but you know, the good news about Goukis is they go through the deck very quickly. So because they go through that deck very quickly, you're more than likely going to get to your Twin Twisters before, like if you're up against something like Mystic Mine, before they get a chance to use it, which I'm still team ban Mystic Mine, period. Anyway, guys, this was the Gouki deck. This is actually one of the decks I actually really like playing. If you guys want to make suggestions for it in the comments below, feel free. Sometimes they really helped. For everybody who commented on the last video, my Invoked Blue Eyes deck, where I was angry about the Nebula Dragon, thank you for leaving a comment. I really liked the suggestions about the Spiral Dragon, and I did test that out. It didn't do as much work as I thought it would, but you know what? That deck is still has a lot of wiggle room to be moved around. I might even move more towards optimization in other ways. But this deck, one thing I'm definitely I have a hard stance on is I do play the Gouki Powerload Ogre. Is the end goal for me. That's just a hard stance. I don't want to use these cards to go into things like the PK variant. I don't care for that. I'm not trying to make the the giant negate board. I think that I prefer the board of like, oh well, you can't get rid of these two monsters, so I prefer that. But that's just me personally. Anyway, guys, like I said, feel free to still leave your suggestions in the comments below. I do read everything you guys send at me, and everything that I'm really enjoying this. I hope you guys are too. Make sure you leave a like if you're liking all these deck profiles, and let me know what you would do different for your Gouki deck in the comments below. And make sure you check out me on my other social medias. They're only going to be in the end card. I'm making art for other Yu-Gi tubers, so make sure you suggest a Yu-Gi tuber that I might make art for in the future. I'm Ben2000YGO. I'm your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh superhero. Peace!